Hello friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype traits, and even GED match results of a Western hunter-gatherer from Ireland, from the Mesolithic period in Ireland right here. So, this is a male, and when did he live? We are going to find that out right now. Um, yes, he lived in 47 to 46 centuries before the Common Era. This is the period of the Mesolithic, approaching the Neolithic actually. So it's kind of like a late Western hunter gatherer, you could say. His Y DNA is I2 and his mitochondrial lineage is U5. What's interesting about my trait predictor is my hold on, let me go back to this. My trait predictor predicts for him Y DNA IJ, but actually, if you look at the table, you can figure out that it's I2 instead and not just IJ. So you have 19 IJ variants out of 21 total, so definitely has IJ. There is 107 I variants out of 108 total, so definitely I. And then you can find out it's I2 because 6 I2 variants out of 6 total, so this person has I2. Uh, it's just that I have trouble with the logic of actually printing that on the screen in the succession in the way it should follow each other. Yeah, but I'll figure it out. I'll fix it eventually. So it's a Western hunter gatherer, and it's kind of like it's basically 100% Western hunter gatherer. I mean, if you run the sample for GD match using, for example, Pinarbasi, Villabruna, and the Fontova Garatri as models, just to figure out maybe they have some farmer admixture, maybe they have some ancient North Eurasian admixture, and it looks like they really don't have any. It looks like they're just pretty much a pure Western hunter gatherer. So there's not much to talk about in terms of ethnicity. But let's see what they score with Eurogenske 36. And this is what they score with Eurogenske 36. Let me make it a little bit, I don't know, fix it so that it's easier for you to see it. So the biggest chunk that they score is Finno-Scandian. That's 25.5%, also Finnish. People have been saying that it's Finnish and Scandinavian, but it's not. It's not a Finnish and Scandinavian component. It's just extremely Finnish. It peaks in Northern Finns, and it is not really found in Scandinavians. In Swedish people, for example, they don't score it. Second component that he scores is East Central European. This is a Lithuanian component, and I've been told once again on YouTube somebody was saying it's Hungarian or as well. No, uh, I've been I've been studying these components and where they peak for a long time. This is a Lithuanian component. It peaks in Lithuanians. So once again, Finnish and Lithuanian are the biggest components this person scores. Followed by that is North Sea, which is yes, somebody once again people want to correct, people want to uh, get their 2 cents in. Indeed, I made a mistake previously when I said that it's found in Irish people. No, it's a Scandinavian component. So there's 20.4% Scandinavian admixture as well. Followed by that is 14% Basque, which is really surprising because you wouldn't expect Basque to have any sort of affinities to Western hunter gatherers because Basque are very southern people. They are Mediterraneans in terms of appearance, in terms of genetics, very Mediterranean. Followed by that is Eastern European, which is a component that's kind of like an Erzya or a Mordvin component, but it is also found in Russians. And last place come North Atlantic, which is kind of this actually Irish component. So it looks like all over the place, but mostly Northern Europe, with the exception of Basque, which is really surprising why this person has some Basque affinities. This Irish Mesolithic hunter gatherer. Maybe you can in the comments tell me why you think that they score 14% Basque. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to Nashakot, what they look like. And this is something new. This is something I just added, and this is not biomarkers. This is actually not on the H store. If you buy my trade predictor from the H store, this is not gonna be there, and it's not gonna be there until May 22nd. I'm gonna be making all these updates, and in May 22nd, I'm gonna release them all together to my H store, and it's going to be very very different. My trade predictor will look by that point very very different from how it does right now. So let's go ahead and see Nashakot, what kind of phenotypes this person is closest to. So they are closest to, hold on, this phenotype, which is something I added very recently, followed by this phenotype, which is also something that I added very recently. It's Baskid. It's phenotype that's predominant in Basques, followed by last place this phenotype, which is also something I added quite recently. and they are actually getting modeled. Let me see. Hold on. They are actually getting modeled as a mixture of this plus this, or this plus this, or this plus this, or this plus this. So there's a little bit of a black. There's a little bit of, even of a uh, African-like admixture in the appearance. So they might have some African traits, which is very interesting. I wonder if they have like curly hair or something like that. Um, we're gonna figure that out if they have some African traits in terms of appearance, because this oracle is based on appearance, not on. It's sort of vaguely based on ethnicity as well. There is a small contribution that ethnicity plays, but it's mostly about appearance. For eye color prediction, looks like they have blue eyes with an amber center, although green eyes and hazel eyes are also quite probable. Blue eyes, they only score 6%, so most likely they don't have blue eyes. Brown eyes, they only score 4%, most likely they don't got brown eyes. And darkest brown, they score 0.007, most likely they don't have the darkest brown eyes either. So in terms of eye color, most likely they fall into this range from hazel to blue with amber center. So these three pictures, these three eye color images are most likely what their eyes look like. For hair color, or likelihood distribution, it looks like they have black hair. That's pretty decisive. All right. And by the way, leave a comment if you want to see Cheddar Man with this new version of Nashokor as well, or with this new version of Trait Predictor. Basically everything, because I can totally do that. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe like in 2 days, because I wanna separate the topics by I want to separate the videos by topic so that I don't post the same thing over and over again, because then people watch less. For skin color likelihood distribution, it looks like he's got all either Mediterranean or light brown skin, so quite dark in terms of skin color, darker than what's typical for modern Europeans. And for hair texture, it looks like he's got straight or wavy hair. All right, so not really much of a likelihood for curly or kinky hair, especially not for kinky. There's a little bit of a likelihood for curly hair, but not for kinky. And for coloring related variants found in the file, it looks like they got BH3, they got BH2, they got BH1. Actually, they have two light color variants in all of the relevant variations for coloring, which is something that I've seen as a pattern with Western hunter gatherers. They have all of the light color variants. BH3, 2, 1, they got everything. They got everything here as well. That's quite interesting to see. Uh, he does not have any light color variants in this variation of SLC 45 in these variations of SLC 4582, so darker pigmentation of eyes, hair, and skin. And he's not genotyped for this variation in SLC 24A5. This might be the big reason why he's scoring so high for the light eye color. Why his eye color is more likely to be blue with amber center, for example, than hazel. It's probably because of this, because this is not found in the file. From my experience dealing with hunter gatherers from Europe, especially Western hunter gatherers, they don't have light color variants here. So if the genotype was present in the file, he would probably be scoring much darker, because most likely he doesn't have any light color variants here. Just statistically speaking, being a Western hunter gatherer. Um, IRF4, he's got two light color variants in this version of IRF4. This is once again a hunter gatherer, European hunter gatherer trait. And it leads to, at least in modern people, it leads to blue eyes, pale skin, and red hair. In his case, it is not enough, because the effect that it has on the phenotype is not really enough to change his really dark, really dark coloring to blue eyes and red hair and pale skin. But it does contribute slightly to the score for red hair. For example, we see that red hair, he's scoring 2 times more likelihood of red hair than light blonde hair, for example. Um, okay, and he does not have any variants for red hair in MC1R gene. All right, very interesting. Now we're gonna go ahead and look at his polygenic risk scores and what kind of traits he has. And it looks like he's got a slightly below average score for deep vein thrombosis. All right, really healthy. He's got a below average score for bipolar disorder type 1. Really good. He's got a below average score for schizophrenia. Really good. By the way, the score for bipolar and for schizophrenia, most of the time, they're going to be kind of similar, because a lot of the SNPs that I used for schizophrenia, I used for bipolar as well, and vice versa. So these scores are going to be pretty similar most of the time. And the disorders themselves are actually similar as well, like bipolar type 1 and schizophrenia. There is the distinction between these two disorders. It's a very, very fine line. It can be hard to distinguish. For type 2 diabetes, looks like he's got a greatly increased odds of type 2 diabetes. Very interesting. We're going to explore that a little bit. And he's got average odds of Alzheimer's, and he's got very low odds of multiple sclerosis. All right. For breast cancer, looks like he's got 4 risk variants out of 16, which is pretty good. 14 risk variants for testicular cancer out of 24, which is kind of slightly high, but we're going to explore that later. He's got 1 risk variant for celiac disease out of 10. All right. 0 for GSS out of 10, really good. 7 for Crohn's out of 28, out of 24, which is kind of bad. So once again, we're going to explore that later. So we have to keep in mind about diabetes. We have to keep in mind about testicular cancer. And we have to keep in mind about Crohn's. 0 risk variance for Raffenstein's out of 12, which is pretty good. 4 risk variance for Parkinson's out of 32, which is, I think, pretty typical. I've been seeing this a lot. So we really have to watch out for Crohn's and for diabetes and for testicular cancer, type 2 diabetes. All right, so we're going to move on to the results, mental health. We're going to move on to the monogenic traits. It looks like he's got AA and Combs-Valmet variation, and he's not genotyped for the MAOA variation. So he's a Warrior, which is very interesting. Very European genotype as well. He's got lower activity of the COMT enzyme, therefore slower breakdown of dopamine and more dopamine accumulating in the system. He also has 2 derived or no-go learner variants, the reduced pro pro variation, once again, super European genotype. And he's got GG in TAC1. So it looks like this genotype in TAC1 is kind of good because it's typical for humans and it leads to slightly higher number of dopamine due to receptor sites in the brain. And this genotype in DRD2 pro pro is arguably kind of good as well. But it does the opposite. It causes a reduction in the number of dopamine due to receptor sites in the brain. Magnitude wise, I think the effect of this TAC1 variation is a little bit larger than this and this, than these two. I'm saying these two because this variation is also linked to the profinitine pro variation. They're very close to each other, and they are typically inherited together. Uh, all right. It looks like he does not have long form 5-HTTLPR, so he has short form 5-HTTLPR, like most people. We're gonna skip autism. We don't care about that. We're gonna skip DDC. We're gonna lactose persistence. He does not carry the European lactose persistence mutation. Neither of the two. So it looks like he's definitely not lactose persistent. At least not doesn't have the European variations for it. For OXTR and the empathy gene, it looks like he's got genotypes that increase the levels of empathy, which is really good to see. All right. For diabetes, it looks like they don't have type 1 diabetes, but they have genotypes that greatly increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, and also FTO gene. The FTO gene is not on this panel, but it also plays a pretty big role in the polygenic risk score for type 2 diabetes. For hemochromatosis, looks like is not a carrier for the C282Y hemochromatosis mutation, although there's 2 more. So we can't really know that for sure. That he doesn't have hemochromatosis, he could have it. He could have the other two risk variants in the other 2 variations. For Alzheimer's, it looks like no risk variants for Alzheimer's in APOE, which is what we really need to know. Everything else we don't really care about. Multiple sclerosis, no risk variants for that. In HLA gene, this doesn't really matter all that much, but it does play a little bit of a role in the polygenic risk score for multiple sclerosis. Cardiovascular disease panel, it looks like we're not going to skip that. We're going to skip. Myopia. Okay, so he's got the G allele here, which is once again a very European trait, and it leads to lower risk of myopia and slightly better eyesight. The G allele here is mostly only found in Europeans, and it's also sort of at low frequencies found in areas adjacent to Europe, such as Central Asia, Middle East, North Africa. But it's a very European allele, and in his case, he's got it. Really good. I don't have it myself, but he's got it, and he's got slightly better eyesight because of this allele. No micropenis. All right, really good to see. Impaired muscle performance, likely endurance athlete rather than strength or power athlete. 1 fat gene variant and FTOs RS939 So he's heterozygous for the fat gene variant here. And in EDAR, he's got a very European genotype. All right. Everything else we don't really care about. Drug response. Is there something that I want to talk about? I don't want to talk about this. Albinism. I don't want to talk about this. Familiar Mediterranean fever. I don't want to talk about this. MCH4. I don't want to talk about this. Cancers. I don't want to talk about this. Wait, actually, I wanted to talk about cancers because he scored high for testicular cancer. So we're gonna talk about the cancers a little bit. So it looks like he's got all of the risk variants for testicular cancer out of the 3 most important variations in the KITO G gene. So yeah, he definitely has an increased risk of testicular cancer. But that's very common and typical for Europeans. Europeans in general have much higher risk of testicular cancer. Okay. Leukemia, is there anything interesting? Looks like he's got lower odds of leukemia for all of them. Really good. Rare diseases and traits panel looks like no risk variance for deafness, no biotinase deficiency, healthy, pretty healthy. Not a carrier for variants for Sanfilippo syndrome, something I added recently. You know, it's funny. I was scrolling through Instagram when I got this video recommended to me. It was about a girl with Sanfilippo syndrome. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. Let me make a change to my trait predictor and add that there. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like he's pretty healthy. Celiac disease, we're gonna skip that. Allergies, we're gonna skip that. Androgen receptor gene looks like he's got higher odds of baldness and no androgen sensitivity. All right. Crohn's syndrome looks like we're gonna skip that. No risk variance for Crohn's, really good to see. Canavan syndrome, no risk variance for that, really good to see. HIV and AIDS panel, zero protective variance from HIV, which is really unfortunate, and kind of also atypical for Europeans. Europeans tend to have some protective variants here. But there's, of course, exceptions. For example, I don't have any protective variants, but Europeans generally tend to have some. For muscular dystrophy myopathies, looks like no risk variance for that, and zero risk variance for ADL out of 32. Really good to see. For color blindness, he's genotyped for 6 variations in OPN1 SW and 6 variations in OPN1 MW, and he does not have any risk variance in either of these two genes. All right, no predisposition to being colorblind. FTO gene panel and obesity, it looks like he's got slightly higher risk of obesity. Actually, never mind, he's got this genotype, which leads to a moderate increase in risk of obesity. Very interesting. But he's got these genotypes which lead to slightly decreased odds of obesity and insulin insensitivity. Sensitivity, excuse me. For syncope panel, it looks like he's got 7 SNPs found in the file. Wow, that's really good. That's really good coverage. And his syncope risk is basically pretty much average. So we can't really say that he's got much of an increased or decreased odds for syncope. Bio traits panel looks like he's got longer or typical sleep duration. He's got high risk of male pattern baldness. He's got lower predisposition to anger, longer telomere length, and longer lifespan. All right. We're gonna not talk about this because this is too difficult to process for you people. I don't want to. If for me as well, it's reading this can be difficult. So I'm not gonna talk about all of this here. Um, for DVT, it looks like he's got some genotypes that decrease and increase the risk of deep vein thrombosis, but we saw his risk score; it's pretty average. And for blood group panel, it looks like his blood group is type O or type A. Uh, in statistics, there is this concept which is called alpha, or kind of like statistical significance, the barrier for statistical significance. Beyond what point do we not consider a result statistically significant? And the alpha is typically 5% or 0.05. So in this case, type A, the score for type A blood type is actually quite statistically significant. The score for type O blood type is the largest, but we can't discard type A because it is also statistically significant. It is also possible that his blood type is type A. We can discard type B and type AB, but we can't discard type A. So it's his blood type, I'm going to say, is either type O or type A. That's kind of the most accurate way of describing it. It could be either one of those two. Um, let's go ahead and see what he scores for the biomarkers. This is something I just added. And for the biomarkers, it looks like he's got a significant decrease in the number of the vitamin D levels. Very interesting. I think Cheddar Man also had a significant decrease. I ran him for my tool and looked already. He's got a very significant decrease in the risk of in the vitamin D levels as well. All right, and for expected level of cholesterol, he's got a slightly increased number of LDL cholesterol, which is kind of bad. Slightly increased level of LDL cholesterol, really unfortunate, but also slightly increased level of HDL cholesterol, which is actually good. You want to have higher HDL and lower LDL cholesterols. So I'm planning on adding a lot more stuff to this biomarkers panel. There's gonna be so much more, man. There's gonna be like everything. Any chemical you can think of is gonna be here. The research. I wonder if I should leave the research links because I left the research links for the cholesterol, but I'm thinking maybe I should leave the research links as well because it sort of gives my report a little bit more validity. But anyway, this is Uh, this is not something you can purchase on itch yet, but May 22nd, I'm going to be working every day. I'm adding something else, and May 22nd, you're going to see all of these changes on itch. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and you can download this file in 23andMe format from link which is in the description of the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.